You are here for a reason, and that reason is not random. There is something important about this exact moment. At first, it may feel like just another ordinary day, but if you stay with this message a little longer, you may begin to notice that something deeper is unfolding. You did not simply arrive here by chance. The timing of you reading these words, hearing this message, or feeling pulled toward this moment carries a meaning that may only become clear with time. If you scroll away too quickly or dismiss this feeling without giving it your attention, you might miss something that life has quietly placed in front of you. There is a strange sense that this moment has been waiting for you, almost as if everything that happened before today slowly guided you here, preparing you to hear something your heart is finally ready to understand. As you continue listening, your perspective begins to change. What once looked like coincidence starts to feel connected. What once felt confusing begins to reveal small pieces of clarity. Little by little, uncertainty gives way to curiosity. Curiosity becomes awareness. Awareness grows into quiet understanding. Stay with me, because what comes next may explain feelings you have been unable to put into words. There is more happening beneath the surface than you realize. And before this message ends, one detail may completely change the way you see this connection. There is someone whose energy remains closely connected to yours in a way that is difficult to explain. This person thinks about you far more often than you would ever imagine. These thoughts are not occasional. They return again and again throughout the day, even when they are busy with work, family, or daily responsibilities. Somehow, your presence continues to find its way into their mind. During simple, everyday moments, something reminds them of you. During quiet evenings, when the noise of the day fades and they finally have time to think, your memory naturally appears. Sometimes they replay conversations. Sometimes they wonder what you are doing. Sometimes they imagine possibilities they have never spoken aloud. Their emotions are not simple, they are layered. At times they feel emotionally connected to you. At other moments they feel a powerful physical attraction. Then there are moments that feel almost spiritual, as though meeting you carried a purpose they cannot fully explain. None of these feelings exist separately. They blend together into something they struggle to understand. They admire your appearance. But that is only the beginning. What truly stays with them is your personality, your calm energy, your kindness, and the way you naturally leave an impression without trying. Keep listening, because the reason these thoughts refuse to disappear may surprise you. They notice things about you that many other people overlook. They remember the way you speak, the way you respond under pressure, and the quiet confidence you show even during difficult moments. Your kindness catches their attention. Your honesty stands out. The way you treat other people stays in their memory long after the moment has passed. They see someone who feels genuine instead of someone trying to impress everyone around them. In a world where so many people wear emotional masks, your authenticity feels refreshing. That is one of the biggest reasons they continue thinking about you. They see someone kind-hearted, someone sincere, someone who does not need to pretend to be perfect. These qualities feel natural, not forced. That honesty creates something inside them that is difficult to ignore. Instead of their interest fading with time, it quietly becomes stronger because it is built on more than physical attraction. It grows through respect, admiration, and emotional curiosity. They feel there is something unique about you that they rarely find in other people. Even when they try to focus on other parts of life, your presence keeps returning to their thoughts. Before we continue, ask yourself one simple question. Have you ever felt someone thinking about you for no clear reason? Because the next part explains why this connection feels so different from anything either of you expected. From the very beginning, something inside them suggested that meeting you was never just an accident. They may never admit this openly because they tend to protect the deepest parts of their emotions. This is someone who experiences feelings with incredible intensity. When they care completely. When they connect deeply. Their greatest challenge has never been feeling emotions. Their greatest challenge has always been expressing them. Over the years, life taught them to be careful with vulnerability. They have opened their heart before only to experience disappointment. They trusted people who failed to value that trust. They shared honest emotions that were misunderstood or ignored. Those painful experiences left lasting marks. They changed the way this person approaches every meaningful relationship. Now, whenever genuine feelings begin to grow, caution appears beside them. Part of them wants to move closer to you. Part of them wants to speak openly and honestly. Yet another part quietly reminds them of everything that once went wrong. That inner voice tells them to slow down, observe carefully, and protect themselves before revealing too much. This constant push and pull creates an emotional struggle they rarely show anyone. Stay with this message, because understanding this hidden battle changes everything about the way their silence should be interpreted. Their interest in you is completely real. Their attraction is genuine. Their emotional connection is genuine as well. Yet every feeling they experience passes through a wall of caution before reaching the outside world. They carefully measure every word they say. They think twice before revealing what is happening inside their heart. This hesitation is not because they feel nothing. It exists because they feel far more than most people realize. When someone matters this deeply, the fear of losing them also becomes stronger. You continue occupying space in their thoughts even when they try to focus elsewhere. Something about your presence settled inside them and never truly left. The impression you created was not temporary. It became part of the way they now understand emotional connection itself. They recognize that you are different from other people they have met. You are not simply another face from the past. You became someone who changed the emotional atmosphere within them. Whether they fully understand it or not, they know you left a lasting mark. That quiet awareness creates tension inside them because every step forward also feels like a risk. And what happened in their past explains exactly why they continue holding themselves back, even when every part of them wants to move closer. There was a time when this person approached love very differently. They expressed emotions freely without overthinking every conversation. When they cared about someone, they showed it openly. When they felt connected, they invested themselves completely. Their heart remained open because they believed honesty would always strengthen relationships. Unfortunately, life had different lessons waiting for them. There were moments when that openness was not appreciated, times when their loyalty was taken for granted, times when their vulnerability became the very thing that caused them pain. After enough disappointments, they slowly changed. The emotional freedom that once came naturally began to feel dangerous. They became more careful. They stopped rushing into emotional situations. They learned to observe before trusting. They built stronger boundaries, not because they stopped believing in love, but because they finally understood how deeply emotional pain could affect them. Their feelings never became smaller. If anything, they became even stronger. The difference is that now those feelings remain hidden until they believe it is truly safe to reveal them. They are no longer led only by emotion. They balance emotion with protection. And there is one important detail about this balance that almost nobody around them fully understands. The next part reveals why their silence often says far more than their words ever could. There was a time when emotional highs felt exciting and full of promise. In those moments, everything seemed possible, but many of those highs were followed by painful lows that left lasting lessons behind. Over time, they realized that strong emotions alone do not always create lasting relationships. Intensity can feel powerful, but it cannot replace stability, trust, and consistency. Because of those experiences, they slowly became more thoughtful. They became more patient. They stopped rushing toward feelings simply because those feelings were strong. Today, they see connection through a different lens. They no longer believe that love has to move quickly to be real. They believe meaningful relationships deserve time to grow. They believe trust should develop naturally instead of being forced. They understand that the strongest foundations are built one honest moment at a time. From the outside, this careful approach can sometimes make them appear distant or difficult to understand. It may even seem as though they are holding something back. But the reality is much deeper than that. They are not emotionally absent. They are learning how to stay balanced. They are trying not to repeat old patterns that once caused unnecessary pain. They are protecting both themselves and the possibility of something genuine. Keep watching, because the next part reveals why their quiet behavior is actually a sign that something important is beginning to change. Even with all their caution, something inside them has started shifting. They are no longer closing every emotional door. They are not turning away from the possibility of something meaningful with you. Instead, they are growing in ways they never expected. They are beginning to understand that emotional safety does not require complete silence. They are discovering that being careful is different from being unavailable. There is a middle ground where honesty and caution can exist together without canceling each other out. Slowly, they are learning that vulnerability does not always lead to disappointment. As this understanding becomes stronger, their actions begin changing in quiet but noticeable ways. The changes may seem small at first. In fact, they might be so subtle that they are easy to overlook. But sometimes the smallest actions reveal the biggest emotional breakthroughs. You may notice them reaching out without a special reason. You may notice conversations becoming more frequent. A simple message may appear during an ordinary afternoon. A short conversation may naturally last much longer than before. They may start creating small opportunities to stay connected because being close to you no longer feels as risky as it once did. Stay with this because one small action could tell you more than 1,000 words ever could. Nothing about this process feels rushed. Nothing feels forced. Everything unfolds naturally because their feelings have not disappeared. They have been growing quietly beneath the surface all along. Day after day, trust becomes a little stronger. As that trust grows, their actions begin matching the emotions they have carried inside for much longer than anyone realizes. The distance between what they feel and what they show slowly becomes smaller. The walls they spent years building no longer seem quite as necessary. They begin realizing that hiding every emotion does not truly keep them safe. It simply delays the chance for something beautiful to grow. That realization changes everything. Instead of standing still, they begin taking careful steps forward. Not reckless steps, not emotional leaps, just calm, intentional choices that allow them to stay true to themselves while making room for a deeper connection. Bit by bit, the interest, admiration, attraction, appreciation, and emotional closeness they have been carrying start finding quiet ways to appear in everyday life. Not through dramatic speeches or impossible promises, but through consistency, presence, and sincere effort. And that steady effort often says far more than words ever could. Beneath every layer of hesitation, every quiet pause, and every attempt to remain emotionally balanced, one truth has never changed. You continue to matter to them. Your presence still lives in their thoughts. Your memory continues to return when they least expect it. As time moves forward, the connection slowly finds space to breathe. Fear begins losing its grip. Trust grows stronger. Confusion slowly turns into understanding. What once remained hidden begins revealing itself through actions, thoughtful decisions, and sincere moments that cannot be faked. Little by little, they become more willing to meet this connection in the real world, instead of keeping it safely inside their imagination. One conversation at a time, one shared experience at a time, one genuine action after another. Some people leave an impression that never fades, no matter how much time passes. Some meetings continue becoming more meaningful instead of disappearing into memory. For this person, you have become one of those rare experiences. The connection continues evolving. It continues reminding them that the best relationships are often built slowly rather than suddenly. And just when they begin believing that trust is finally possible again, another important shift begins to unfold. As this connection becomes steadier, the energy between both of you starts finding a healthier rhythm. What once felt uncertain slowly begins feeling more stable. What once seemed difficult to understand becomes much easier to read. During this process, something important becomes clear about who they really are. Deep inside, they are not someone who enjoys standing still forever. They naturally like progress. They enjoy moving forward when they believe the timing is right. Their hesitation has never come from a lack of interest. It comes from wanting certainty before making meaningful decisions. They prefer understanding their emotions completely before acting on them. They want confidence before commitment. They want clarity before creating change. That careful mindset is now leading them towards something different. The thoughts they kept hidden for so long are slowly becoming actions. Feelings that once stayed locked inside their heart begin finding practical ways to express themselves. Watch closely, because this is the moment where quiet emotions slowly become visible through real-life choices. You may notice them becoming much more proactive than before. Instead of waiting for life to create opportunities, they begin creating those opportunities themselves. Their communication starts carrying greater purpose. Conversations no longer stay limited to casual messages or quick exchanges. There is more intention behind every interaction. They begin looking for reasons to spend time together. They become interested in creating shared experiences instead of simply imagining what those experiences could be. A simple text may naturally grow into an invitation. A brief conversation may develop into hours of meaningful discussion. They may ask about your plans. They may check your schedule. They may quietly adjust their own routine to create more chances to see you. Their focus shifts from wondering what might happen to actively building something that has the chance to become real. This is no longer the energy of someone watching from the sidelines. It is the energy of someone slowly stepping into the connection with growing confidence. And what motivates every one of these small but meaningful actions is a sincere desire to build something together instead of carrying those feelings alone. The next part reveals why that shared effort has the power to transform everything. They are slowly realizing that the strongest relationships are never built by one person alone. Real connection grows when two people choose to meet each other with equal effort, honest communication, and genuine care. They understand now that no single person can carry the emotional weight of an entire relationship forever. Balance matters. Mutual effort matters. Shared energy creates lasting bonds. As this understanding becomes stronger, they stop spending all their time imagining what could happen and begin focusing on building something real with you. At the same time, it helps to understand the natural rhythm of their personality. Even when their feelings run deep, they rarely move too fast. Even when excitement fills their heart, they prefer taking steady steps instead of rushing ahead. They like to pause. They reflect before making important decisions. They adjust as they learn more about their emotions. They want to feel emotionally secure before taking bigger steps. Because of this, progress may sometimes seem slower than expected. It may not arrive through dramatic confessions or impulsive choices. Instead, everything grows naturally, one conversation after another, one meaningful moment after another, one thoughtful decision at a time. And that difference is important. Slow progress is still progress. Careful movement is still movement. What truly matters is not how fast the connection grows, but how consistently it keeps moving forward. Stay with me, because the next shift explains why patience often creates the strongest foundation. As time passes, they slowly become less controlled by old fears and painful memories. The emotional weight they carried for so long begins feeling lighter. Experiences that once made them hesitate no longer hold the same power over every decision they make. This transformation does not happen overnight. It happens quietly. It grows through reflection, personal growth, and a deeper understanding of themselves. When people begin releasing emotional burdens from the past, they naturally become more present in the moment. They become more emotionally available. They become more open to building something meaningful instead of constantly protecting themselves from imagined dangers. There is a simple truth hidden beneath all of this. People often become cautious after they have been hurt, not because they lack feelings, but because they desperately want different results than before. They want healthier relationships. They want emotional stability. They want something that feels safe without losing its depth. As they continue learning from the past without allowing it to control the future, their ability to connect freely becomes stronger. Real transformation never comes through shortcuts or empty promises. It comes through self-awareness. It comes through maturity. It comes from the daily choice to respond differently than they once did. Keep watching, because one subtle sign may reveal that this change is already happening. That is why meaningful growth often appears so quietly that many people almost miss it. At first, the signs seem small. More conversations, more consistency, more thoughtful effort, more willingness to stay engaged even during ordinary moments. These quiet changes reveal something much bigger happening beneath the surface. When someone truly cares, their actions slowly begin matching their feelings. Not perfectly every single day, but consistently enough that the difference becomes impossible to ignore over time. This is where their action-oriented nature finally becomes visible. They stop keeping the connection locked inside their thoughts. Instead, they begin making room for it in everyday life. They create time. They protect space for meaningful conversations. They become intentional about helping the relationship grow. Instead of only responding when opportunities appear, they begin creating those opportunities themselves. Instead of waiting endlessly for the perfect moment, they choose involvement. Instead of allowing hesitation to make every decision, they begin choosing steady participation. These actions may seem ordinary on the surface, but together they tell a powerful story. They reveal someone who is no longer standing at the edge wondering what might happen. They are slowly stepping into something they truly want, and what happens next makes this change even more meaningful. As this process continues, the connection between both of you starts becoming much more stable. The uncertainty slowly begins fading. The emotional energy feels easier to understand. There is still a need for patience. There is still room for understanding. There is still value in allowing everything to unfold naturally instead of forcing outcomes. The difference now is that real movement has begun. The connection is no longer standing still. It is growing. It is evolving. It is finding its own direction. Over time, this becomes one of the clearest signs that something important has changed. Action slowly replaces hesitation. Presence replaces silence. Consistency begins replacing avoidance. Those quiet changes communicate more than dramatic words ever could. Genuine intentions are almost always revealed through behavior. Real interest becomes visible through steady effort. Lasting connection becomes visible through participation, reliability, and showing up when it matters most. Before we continue, pay attention to one thing. The next emotional shift happens so quietly that many people never recognize it until everything already feels different. Beneath everything taking place on the outside, another transformation is happening within them. A deeper sense of balance begins forming inside their heart and mind. It is not sudden. It develops gradually through many small emotional adjustments. What once felt tense slowly begins relaxing. What once seemed unstable starts finding solid ground. What once felt emotionally confusing becomes much easier to understand. Earlier in this journey, there was a constant push and pull inside them. One day they wanted closeness. The next day, fear made them step back. One moment they imagined building something meaningful. The next moment, old memories encouraged them to retreat. That inner conflict created emotional exhaustion. It filled their mind with uncertainty. But little by little, that struggle loses its intensity. Their emotional world becomes calmer. Instead of reacting immediately to every feeling, they pause and observe. They begin understanding themselves more clearly than ever before. They learn to separate genuine intuition from unnecessary fear. They recognize which worries belong to today and which are only echoes from the past. That growing awareness changes the way they experience this entire connection. As emotional clarity continues growing, the constant mental noise slowly begins fading away. The endless overthinking that once controlled so many decisions no longer carries the same influence. The endless questions become quieter. The imagined worst-case scenarios lose their strength. Fear stops making every choice on their behalf. In its place comes something much healthier: greater awareness, greater understanding, greater emotional stability. This allows them to see your connection with fresh eyes instead of viewing everything through the shadow of old disappointments. They stop assuming every meaningful relationship will end the way previous ones did. Instead, they begin paying attention to what is actually happening in the present moment. That simple change transforms everything. When fear becomes smaller, authenticity naturally has more room to grow. When anxiety loses its grip, presence becomes stronger. When emotional clarity replaces confusion, healthier decisions begin happening almost naturally. Because of this, their behavior starts changing without forcing it. They become more comfortable staying emotionally present. They become more comfortable accepting closeness instead of resisting it. They become more willing to let meaningful experiences exist without questioning every feeling that appears. And that quiet confidence becomes the strongest sign yet that something real is finally beginning to take shape. The hesitation does not disappear overnight, but it slowly loses the power it once had. It no longer controls every decision or every emotional response. Little by little, they become stronger at staying engaged instead of pulling away. Their willingness to remain connected becomes more consistent. Their comfort with vulnerability grows one small step at a time. That gradual change creates space for something much deeper to develop between the two of you. Conversations begin flowing with greater ease. Communication feels more natural than before. Their words become clearer. Their intentions become easier to recognize. The emotional uncertainty that once surrounded the connection slowly begins fading into the background. Instead of relying only on subtle hints or quiet signals, they start expressing themselves in more direct ways. At first, their words are still thoughtful. They still choose them carefully. They still reflect before speaking because that is simply part of who they are. But now those words carry more honesty, more confidence, more emotional clarity. What was once hidden deep inside gradually begins revealing itself through everyday actions, meaningful conversations, thoughtful gestures, and consistent presence. Pay close attention here, because the next shift explains why this connection begins feeling more real than ever before. Deep inside, another powerful transformation is quietly taking place. Different parts of their emotional world are no longer fighting against one another. The part that longs for closeness, the part that fears getting hurt, the part that believes in hope, the part that wants protection. Instead of pulling in different directions, these parts slowly begin working together. That inner balance changes everything. The desire for connection no longer feels dangerous. The need to protect themselves no longer controls every choice they make. A healthier middle ground naturally begins forming. From that place, their energy starts moving forward with greater confidence. Not rushed, not impulsive, not driven by emotion alone. Every step feels intentional. Every decision feels grounded. Every action carries purpose. They become more dependable. They follow through on what they say more often. They stay emotionally present for longer periods instead of disappearing whenever feelings become deeper. Their presence becomes steadier, their effort becomes easier to recognize, and when someone consistently chooses to stay present, that choice often reveals more about their heart than any dramatic declaration ever could. Stay with this, because the next realization changes the entire meaning of this connection. At the same time, the emotional importance of your connection continues becoming stronger inside them. What first started as simple interest slowly develops into something much deeper. What began with curiosity gradually grows into genuine emotional significance. They begin feeling that this connection matters in ways they cannot fully explain. Even if they struggle to put those feelings into words, they recognize the impact you have had on their life. They recognize the influence you continue having on their thoughts and emotions. Your presence becomes part of the way they experience everyday life. Because of that, thoughts about the future begin appearing naturally. These are not rushed plans or sudden promises. They are quiet possibilities forming gently in the background of their mind. Ideas about stability begin appearing. Thoughts about trust become more important. Partnership feels less like a distant dream and more like something worth considering.